For the longest time, I've been figuring out how to combine two of my favorite things, talking about tarot and cooking. And I think I figured it out. So, welcome to Tarot in the Kitchen. I am going to make a recipe I've been wanting to make for a while. The kitchen has always been one of my favorite places to gather and communicate and talk with people. And I don't have a lot of people besides my family who come through and chat with me in the kitchen. I thought it'd be enjoyable to do this together. So this year, one of my goals is to bake a new recipe every month. So I figured, why not talk about tarot while I bake my new recipe? And the starting recipe is actually one that I have wanted to do for over a year now. You see, I bought a bunch of rose petals when I was making foot soaks for family, and I had excess rose petals because I accidentally ordered the wrong amount. But rose petals are one of my favorite magical ingredients, so I'm very glad that I have an abundance of them. And I decided I was going to make a rose petal cardamom shortbread. So that's what I'm making today. And that offers me the amazing opportunity to talk about something in tarot that I think is really important, is the rose as a symbol in tarot. So I am starting off my baking here with this lovely rose petal cardamom sugar that I've already made. And it smells amazing. I wish you could smell it. If you were here, I'd be handing you the bowl to say, here, smell how amazing this is. Now, roses show up in a lot of tarot cards. They are a symbol of passion. They are a symbol of protection. They are a symbol of wisdom. And I mean, Valentine's Day is coming up soon, and we do see that a lot, right? That roses get used for these things because the magical is often mixed in with the mundane in ways that we don't always realize it, right? It infiltrates. So the two colors that show up the most in the tarot are red roses and white roses. Now, the red roses are the ones that we normally think of the most when we think of passion. And the very first card that I think of when we're looking at roses is the Magician. The Magician is surrounded by these red roses, okay? They are everywhere on this card. And the thing about the Magician is, as our first major arcana card, now you could argue with me that the Fool is the first, and I will give you that. However, the Fool has his own special part to play, which I'll also talk about. So the Magician being one, though, is kind of our, okay, we're getting down to business card. And the Magician is often looking at us saying, hey, I can make this thing happen. The goal of the Magician is to say, I have this dream and I am going to bring it into the world. I have all the tools, I have the insight, I have the creative wisdom, I have the divine insight. I am going to create it. And creating anything, it takes some passion. And so all of those red roses on that card that he is surrounded by are indicators of the passion that the Magician has to bring in to the situation to be able to make it happen. And just like if you're in my actual kitchen, we pause while I blend. I'll have made sure that I fast forwarded through that little bit because we are doing the special important part of creaming the sugar and the butter together. Oop. out. And yes, I have a lovely stand mixer, but the thing is, I couldn't extend my cord out this far, so I use a hand mixer, which is just as helpful of a tool. Back to the magician. So the magician is surrounded by red roses, and so that means he has a passion to bring together the things that he needs to make happen to be able to create his dream. And so often we have to realize that when we have decided that we have a desire to make something a reality, those roses, that indicator of passion on the card, is not there by chance. Pamela Coleman Smith put nothing on the cards that was simply by chance. Everything is a symbol, has a purpose in the card. And roses definitely do. Another spot that we see roses is on the Hierophant, which is my soul card. If you don't know about soul cards, I'll probably talk about them in another one of these. And in the Hierophant card, you actually see the roses on a outfit that one of the people who is learning from the Hierophant is wearing. Again, they are there to learn from the Hierophant because they are passionate about the things that the Hierophant has to share. And that's another really important message for us to remember, because sometimes we see the Hierophant and we worry that the Hierophant's not sharing their message. But really, the Hierophant is sharing their message with the people who are passionate and wanting to learn and absorb and really learn from this wise teacher who has information to share with others. And so the roses on his outfit, on the person who's learning from the Hierophant, these roses are such an indicator of, oh, I am here and I am passionate about this thing. And so it's very important to remember that. And in both of those cards, with the Hierophant and the Magician, the passion is not without wisdom. So driving head first towards a goal, it's good. It is good to be passionate about something and drive forward towards it. You need that to keep the energy going, right? To be able to continue driving yourself forward in your goals, you have to actually be passionate, right? But you have to be willing to learn along the way. That's where the wisdom part comes in when it comes to roses. We can't just drive forward and not learn. Because if we drive forward without being willing to take on wisdom, we might end up doing the same thing over and over and over again and just end up hitting wall after wall without changing our direction or our course or our approach. And then it's just kind of foolish. We just have that chance of burning ourselves out and not actually going anywhere with our passion, except for hurting ourselves. And so with the passion must come wisdom. And so the rose also provides that desire for making sure we're actually learning as we push ourselves forward. And again, very much apparent on the Hierophant, because if you're going to sit at the feet of a teacher, you can be passionate about what it is that you're going to learn. But if you're not willing to actually take in the wisdom and the lessons, right? Some of the best teachers out there don't tell you things directly because they want you to understand it and absorb the information in the way that works for you. Parables are often a very fun way that this comes through, right? Telling you a story that highlights the situation at hand without giving you the direct answer. So you need the wisdom of being able to understand the story as it presents itself and not just the passion of I'm going to learn this. Because again, if you're just being passionate about a topic but you're not actually learning from it, maybe you'll be able to recite some facts. But again, We're not learning, we're just memorizing. So now that we have our butter and our sugar all mixed together, now it's time for some flour. Okay, I've got buttery hands. Ooh, let's do my favorite. Towel over the shoulder. So now we get a little messy because shortbread is one of those things that it is very versatile, very crumbly. It very much can be done in all sorts of ways. It is one of those things that once we get to this part, using our hands is best. So mix it all in. Now this is the first time I'm doing this recipe. I did mention earlier that I have a goal to bake a new recipe once a month, and that actually came from a little magical ritual that I did that is common in the online witchy spaces. I remember seeing it the year before last as well and doing it. And so this year I had a mix of wanting things for pleasure and wanting things for business. And one of the things I put on there was trying to bake a new recipe once a month, and you take and write out 13 things that you desire for the upcoming year, or the upcoming cycle, whatever it is you're looking at. I've seen people want to do it as a birthday ritual. I've seen people do it as the end of the year ritual. I did it in alignment with the first new moon of this calendar year, because over the holidays just wasn't the right timing for me. And so this worked out well. And so with that 13 ritual, what you do is you write out 13 things that you want for this upcoming cycle to do, to experience, to focus on. Everybody kind of gets to make it their own. And then you, for 12 nights in a row, destroy one of the things you wrote down. And you don't know what it is because you fold them up and it's hidden away in its little ball. Make a little folded piece of paper, and you destroy it in the sense that you understand that God or the universe or your guides or however you want to, whatever your preference is. Hi. Okay. That's fine. As long as you don't mind that you're going to end up walking through my video on YouTube. With the idea that you'll be helped through the situation and that that's not your focus. You'll be able to work on it. Obviously, it's something you still want. But at the 13th night, you open up whatever your last piece of paper is, and you end up with what your focus is for the year ahead, for the cycle ahead. And so for me, it was baking. And when I saw that that was my ritual, that was what I was going to be focused on for the next year, I suddenly had a fun creative insight. And I love the idea of having a kitchen show. I call it a kitchen show, not a cooking show, because I'm not really interested in having a show where I teach you how to make what it is I'm making. But I do like the idea of having a space where people come and hang out with me while I'm in the kitchen. So I decided that I was going to take this baking challenge of mine, where I bake a new thing once a month, and turn it into a kitchen show. And it is very much in alignment with how I've done my social media for a while now, because being in the kitchen is my favorite spot, as I said in the beginning. And so, yeah, that's why I am doing this right now. And now I have a nice formed dough ball here of my rose cardamom shortbread. Now, shortbread, as I started saying before I went off on my tangent, I love shortbread because it is so versatile and it can be so many things. And earlier I did mention the fool. Let's talk about it. Shortbread. I like to think of shortbread as the fool card. Now, the reason that I think about this is because fool is 0. That's why some people might argue that the fool is the first card in the arcana, because technically it starts with 0, right? However, in my opinion, when we look at the fool being 0 means it is a card of infinite possibilities, right? It means that there's so many different things that it can take on and represent. And that is representation of us, right? We are the fool, because the fool ends up traveling through the major arcana and experiencing all of the cards that the arcana has to offer, and the minor arcana too, for that matter. But we really think about it more so in the major, because it is the card of infinite possibilities, and the fact that they are traveling through the entirety of the tarot. It's a very versatile card, right? It can represent so many things, and it represents all of us. Shortbread is the same thing, in my opinion. I could have made anything in the shortbread, I suppose. I could have found a recipe for shortbread that really covered anything. We have sweet shortbreads and savory shortbreads. And so it does make me feel very much like it's the fool, because it takes on what it is you're wanting it to take on. It gets to be the thing you're looking for at that moment. And the fool definitely has that ability to be many things, just like we do. And the fool is one of my favorite cards for that reason. And sometimes people don't like when the fool gets pulled for them, because they think that they're being told that they are a fool. And so often we think of the fool as a bad thing, because who wants to be told that they're foolish? However, when I think of the fool card and this idea of being foolish, often it's not that they're the foolish ones. It's that somebody who doesn't see the vision, right? Because the very first thing the fool does is they go on and become the magician, right? That person who has an idea. I'm doing our heart because Valentine's Day is coming up. The person who has an idea and wants to make it a reality. There are going to be people out there who go, what are you talking about? That can't happen. That thing doesn't exist yet. Whoever would have thought that that thing could be a thing, right? And so you have people who go and say, oh, that's so foolish of you, okay? But the fool knows what their vision is, right? Other people may not be able to see their vision, but they can see their vision. They can see what the end goal is. They can see that maybe they don't know how they're getting to that final destination yet. That's the whole point of traveling through the major arcana, is figuring it out along the way. Okay? And so people get worried that they're going to be called the fool, but they have to trust their own inner wisdom that says, okay, we're going to make this happen. Now, the fool does also carry a rose. If you look at the fool, I'll insert it somewhere. The fool has a rose in his hand. Now, unlike the magician who has a red rose, the fool's rose is white. Now, white is often a color for purity. The idea that And purity in the tarot is more like pure in the sense of certainty. Like the fool's not letting anyone else mar what their vision is for their goals, what they want to accomplish, right? They are making sure that their version of whatever it is that they want to create is going to happen. Okay. And so the white rose that the fool carries is this idea of absolute, of being absolute. Yeah. Okay. So look at it. Beautiful. Hearts, shortbread, rose, cardamom, going to the oven. And so there's another place that I can think of where roses are a bit predominant, and that is on the Nine of Swords. Now, this is the first minor arcana that we're talking about, and the difference between the major and the minor tends to be the idea of kind of what focus we're having. With the major arcana, when we talked about the magician, we're talking about like big dreams, right? Big things coming. But when we look at our minor arcana, it's more our day to day, the things that we might experience as we go about our day or about, the month or whatever. And so the swords, poor swords, feel like they get a little bit of a bad rap because our swords are our words cards, our thinking, our thoughts. Swords represent air, right? And so our thoughts are often part of that space. And the Nine of Swords is a card where someone is sitting up in bed and looking very distraught and definitely looks like maybe they had a nightmare type thing, right? And you can see, just like in the Hierophant, how the roses were on the clothing of one of the people learning. The roses on the Nine of Swords are actually on the bed sheet, on the comforter that they are under. They're on a quilt, and the quilt is over the person, right? And so the idea of the roses and white roses, so purity of thoughts, of focus, that is often with nines. Nines are kind of our coming to completion card. It's not the full completion, but normally it's a, hey, we're wrapping things up here. What do we need to still do? And with the swords are often about our overthinking, our ability to overthink, but also being sure that it's okay, reminding ourselves that it's okay. And so with the Nine of Swords, sitting up in bed, but covered in this blanket of roses, is a reminder that you can shake yourself out of these bad thoughts, this bad dream. You can awake and remember that it was only a dream, or it's only excess thoughts that aren't actually impacting what's going on. And so with those, they're as a form of protection. And so when you think about it, roses have thorns. They are beautiful and they are filled with wisdom, but also they got some points to them, right? And so having that sense of protection around your passion, around your wisdom, is really helpful. And so that is one more fun spot where this shows up. Okay. Look at that. 2 sheets of cookies. So what have we talked about? We talked about red roses on the magician and the Hierophant in general. We talked about white roses on the Fool and on the Nine of Swords. We talked about how roses are passion and wisdom and some protection as well. And then, you know, passion can be both excitement and love. So we did make sure, since we're close to Valentine's Day, I wanted my heart-shaped cookies. But that's really one of those things that I love when it comes to thinking about the tarot is there's bones and structure to the tarot. There's the idea that we have the minor arcana, which is filled with a system of numbers and elements. And then the major arcana is a journey of growth and transformation. And all along the way, there are symbols that we have our own intuitive connections to. They have magical connections as well, esoteric connections, hence the wisdom, passion, protection. But there's also just personal connections. I love roses. I use them most frequently, probably in my magic, because yes, it's love and passion and wisdom and protection if you're looking for it. But also, I just love the smell of roses and the way they look. Rose happens to be my birth flower, so I've always felt this tie and this connection to roses. So for it to be the first one that I am talking about, to happen to have had an excess, an abundance of rose petals, and then decide that I'm going to make a baked good with them, it's very much tied into me. And so that means that I also notice the roses when they show up on the tarot cards. And that is just a testament to how much tarot ends up being our own practice and seeing all the things that are on those cards. Timer's about to go off. Batch out. They smell really good. I wish I had smell-o-vision for you. I do not. And so when it comes to tarot, and any magical practice for that matter, everybody is going to have their own method, their own things, the way they view the world. And that's going to make a big impact on the symbols that stand out the most, or the flavor of which the card ends up coming through, right? And so it's just a good reminder that you're diving into whatever it is that you're diving into gets to be the way you want it to. So if you look at the Magician card and you see the roses, maybe they'll remind you of this video, or something will stick in your brain. Or maybe it's not the roses that stand out to you on the Magician card. It's the lilies that also are very much in front of the Magician on that card, or the tools that are sitting on his table, or the way he has his wand raised up to the sky. It is also a reminder that you don't have to pick just one symbol that stands out. It's every time you look at the card, you can decide what to connect with at that point in time, which is also very fitting for the way life works. And so, yeah, these are still too hot to take off of this. Let me get my cooling rack. So yeah, the stories we tell through the tarot, through our lives, however it is we want to look at it, they're our own. They are the way we see the world. The way we see the world paints the way we do everything, right? And it's just a really important thing to remember as we move through this grand game we call life, right? Today, I've invited you here into my kitchen to talk tarot and watch me bake. Because that's what feels good to me right now. And I wish I could offer you one of these cookies. A, they're a little too hot still, but B, you're not actually here. But I will share what the recipe was so that if you're interested and you want to make your own, you can. I really shouldn't be eating these yet. Now that's a yummy cookie. The magic of a new recipe. I will say, this is going to be a fun adventure too because my mom always joked that her favorite thing to do was to cook the new recipe she'd never cooked before when she invited guests over. So this is going to be an experiment every time I do a new recipe on here, whether it's actually going to be good or not. So I'm glad you were here to witness how delicious this cookie is. And I'll put in the comments in the description the link to find the recipe if you're interested in trying. And thank you for joining me in my kitchen for this tarot chat. And I'll see you next time.